Even just talking about this musical is draining me emotionally from wanting to watch any musicals ever again. Because it's something so toxic and so controversial can be loved and praised with willful ignorance towards the problems that it has, or at worst, given justification and excuses, then honestly, after all this, I think I need a minute. I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews, signing out, and I'll see you on the wasteland. God damn it. The truth of Evan's deception can't be discovered, and instead of the brunt of the discussion falling onto the Murphys, it all falls directly on Evan's shoulders after accusations of why Connor truly killed himself begin to surface, leading him to confessing what actually happened and talking to his mother about his suicide. I was over this. Nope! Son of a bitch. So, can't avoid you forever, can I? I've really tried my hardest to avoid talking about you, but after a whole year, a lot of things have changed. My feelings towards you have not. So, for the last time, I'm gonna take another look at you. I will finish what I started, and I will finally put you out of my life for good.
Dear Evan Hansen, you and I need to have a talk. Again. Yep, I haven't forgotten about you, sadly. It's hard to believe it's been over a year since we've had our little discussion, and so much has happened to you since then, and not in a good way. Believe me, I've wanted to check back with you after the release of your movie adaptation, but could not find the words to do so nor the motivation. Now that the worst case scenario has already happened, you don't seem too busy to talk one last time. Consider this my last message for you, and afterwards, I promise you will never have to hear from me again. Sincerely yours, Sebastian. P.S. I realize now that you were never wearing a wig, but you still look like a tool.
Motherfucker, you look dirty.
September 18th, 2022. A day that'll live in infamy in the world of Broadway forever. A lot of crazy things happened that day. Grand Theft Auto 6 gets leaked online, the final preparations for Queen Elizabeth's funeral were being put into place while she waited to be greeted by Princess Diana in the afterlife, and one of the craziest twists happened during a year of upsetting upsets and surprising surprises. Dear Evan Hansen closed its doors.
I was just literally on my bed scrolling and I saw this news come out that Dear Evan Hansen sets closing date on Broadway, that the musical is actually going to be closing on December 4th of this year.
We just got news that not only is the Dear Evan Hansen in the West End closing, but Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway in New York is also closing.
The Broadway transfer of Dear Evan Hansen to the West End, currently playing at the Noel Coward Theatre, will end its run in London later this year in October.
Yes, you heard that right. As of the minute of editing this video, it's now been over a month since the musical has given its last performance in the Music Box Theatre on Broadway. Hell, it even closed on the West End a month afterwards, just a few years after receiving 3 goddamn Olivier Awards. Dear Evan Hansen, the musical that has touched a generation of easy-to-please crusty old white people, along with a generation of children, teens, and young adults who were lucky enough to not know what the actual story was, the winner of 6 Tony Awards including Best Musical, Best Book of a Musical, and Best Actor in a Leading Role for Ben Platt, the youngest Tony Award winner at the time, the musical that told thousands of people everywhere that they will be found, can no longer be found on Broadway.
Now that is irony!
I also want to address a little something I noticed about the closure. While the musical itself closed on the 18th of September of 2022, I noticed that my video essay talking about the show came out a day just after it actually closed. So does this mean that I technically killed Dear Evan Hansen?
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
Nah, I'm not that clever. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Shit, that video didn't even get any hate views. The responses were too positive. The internet failed me just like Luma failed Puerto Rico.
That's what the kids call epic fail.
Speaking of failure, how did this even happen? Dear Evan Hansen is one of the few musicals to overstay its welcome and become one of the biggest ticket sellers in the Great Wide Way. One whose success led to jumpstarting the careers of several incredible talents, like Ben Platt, Laura Dreyfus, and Mike Feist. Sure, there's been a few embarrassing blunders, NFTs, and of course there's the actual plot itself being completely controversial beyond all reasonable measure, but fans fell in love with this musical for many reasons. But did everyone else do so as well?
Dear Evan Hansen.
Can we help you?
That's a question that was put to the test on September 24th, 2021, when the movie adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen was released in theaters everywhere. And despite the decent marketing, anticipation, behind-the-scenes talent, and return of key players, the unthinkable happened. The movie was destroyed by everyone. And when I say everyone, I goddamn mean everyone! The response to the movie adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen is movie musical legend at this point. The film had a strong start when news broke out that Steven Chbosky was going to be directing the picture, while playwright Stephen Levinson was going to write the screenplay. Ben Platt also announced that he will be reprising his role in a casting decision that would backfire tremendously, but more on that later. Pasek and Paul would also be writing new new original music for the film, and several changes would also be made towards the story. This was a really good step in the right direction, pardon Pasek and Paul, but hey, that's just me. the movie looked like it was definitely starting to shape up to be one of the biggest adaptations ever. The stars were aligned for Dear Evan Hansen to have a successful film adaptation along with a successful redemption arc for the musical given all the problematic elements that the story was famous for. So, what the hell happened?
Why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers?
Well, when you're right, Eric. So, for the last time, let's take a dive into this rabbit hole of embarrassment and see whether or not any good can actually be found. This is the movie adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh my god. Like, I knew it was gonna be bad, but damn. I never thought it could be such a mess.
Before we can truly find out what exactly went wrong with this adaptation, I think it's appropriate that we start off by analyzing the painful aftermath of the movie's release. Because yeah, I'm not kidding when I say that this movie was a lot of things, but it was definitely not a hit. As I said before, the film had a strong start with the announcement of who was behind the project, and since the announcement of Ben Platt was confirmed, several other big-name stars like Amy Adams and Julianne Moore were confirmed to be attached to the project as well. Surprisingly, COVID-19 wasn't too much of an issue for the production either, as principal photography ended without a hitch and the recording of the music was... Actually, hold on. How was the singing recorded in this movie again?
We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Oh god, we're in trouble.
Fucking thing sucks!
Anticipation for this movie was slowly but surely lowering down significantly amid several heated discourses surrounding the controversial casting of original Evan Hansen actor Ben Platt. Discourses that only got more and more heated when the first trailer for the movie was released and everyone's biggest fear/criticisms were confirmed upon seeing a 27-year-old Ben Platt in character as a 17-year-old Evan Hansen. As if that wasn't bad enough, the trailer removed the veil of mystery that the musical had on stage, as now millions of people on YouTube were able to find out for themselves what exactly the plot of Dear Evan Hansen was in less than 2 minutes. And yeah, you can imagine how everyone was going to react to it.
What the fuck?
Things were starting to look bad for the movie before it was even released, and it didn't help that initial reviews for the film were anything but pleasant. Thankfully, upon the movie's release, things only got infinitely worse. Reviews for the film were mostly negative, with critics praising some of the performances and finding the overall film too boring and dull to enjoy, while other reviews were much harsher, calling it distressing, messy, full of psychological manipulation and passive aggression, and, get a load of this, more uncomfortable than Cats 2019. As of this moment, the film sits at a depressing 29% on Rotten Tomatoes and a pathetic 39% on Metacritic. But let's pretend that professionals who know better than basement-dwelling douchebags on Twitter whining about Joker losing to Parasite don't know what they're talking about. Instead, let's see what the audience had to say about this movie. Well, that's the issue right there. There is no audience for this movie, because this movie bombed. To put it into perspective, the budget for Dear Evan Hansen when they brought the show to Broadway was around $9.5 million, and up to its final performance, its all-time box office gross was around $270 million. And keep in mind, This is from years of being open at the Music Box Theater and spending around 1,669 performances and 21 previews. That's a long time to recoup its advances, which for a big Broadway show such as this is extremely difficult. The movie, meanwhile, had an estimated budget of $28 million. Hold that thought. Just see that one more time here. Alright, let's see. $28 million! What the hell did they need the extra money for?
You see, I'm a guy of simple taste. I enjoy, dynamite, and gunpowder, and gasoline.
With a ridiculous budget more than 3 times the budget of the stage version, Dear Evan Hansen had an estimated budget of $28 million, presumably with marketing included as well. I'll get into more of why this was a huge mistake later on, but the reason I'm bringing up box office numbers here is to highlight the success versus failure ratio. Dear Evan Hansen, the stage musical, cost $9.5 million and made over $270 million upon its completion. Dear Evan Hansen, the movie, cost 3 times that amount and it made a grand total of fuck all, only $15 million domestically. Meaning that with a budget of $28 million, which includes principal photography, casting, editing, pre-production, post-production, catering, and snake oil for whatever Ben Platt was drinking to convince himself that he still looks like a teenager despite being the same age as I am, Dear Evan Hansen the movie lost roughly a total of $13 million. Not even Cats 2019 failed as hard as this. However, overseas, it actually did even worse, recouping a paltry $4 million in the international box office. The movie made a worldwide total of $19 million on a $28 million budget.
Are you f***ing serious?
Yep. No amount of positive word of mouth or ridiculous cinema score ratings can hide the fact that this movie is objectively a financial failure. Critics hated it, audiences didn't care for it, and a year later, the show would close its doors on Broadway, permanently following suit. Now, that's not to say that the movie is inherently responsible for the show's closure, but I don't have a way of confirming that it isn't either.
That's rough, buddy.
So now that the show is dead and buried, and every fan of the musical has faded into obscurity, the question now remains, why am I talking about this show again? Well, it's not from lack of trying. I definitely wanted to talk about it a couple of years ago when it first came out, but, well, it's mostly because of this now infamous declaration that I made.
This movie will cause controversy regardless of what I have to say. The people who love it will love it, and Twitter will be filled to the brim with hot takes, apologists, and a whole bunch of nonsense that left me just a little bit burned out.
Whoops! Yeah, I know. People can vote with their wallets sometimes. Who knew, right? I watched the movie on opening weekend and sacrificed watching a filmed Oasis concert from the 90s just to justify getting my review out early for it. I could have been watching that instead. And unfortunately for me, as bad as the movie is, and it is, it left me so speechless and burnt out upon watching it that I couldn't even muster the strength to talk about it or break down why it upset me so much as it did, other than a crappy 3-minute TikTok video I did after seeing it.
So I just finally got out of watching Dear Evan Hansen, and oh my goddamn Jesus, it somehow manages to be better than the musical and subsequently fucking worse.
But now that the show is officially gone on Broadway, I think it's about time we did a little autopsy in order to try to figure out exactly what went wrong with this movie and how could an adaptation of one of the most beloved shows on Broadway, citation needed, could possibly fail as hard as it did.
Connor took his own life.
For the rest of the video going forward, I'm going to be operating under the assumption that everyone watching has already been made fully aware of the plot of the show. For convenience, however, allow me to give those not in the know the TLDR on what exactly the story is about. Spoiler alert, it's not about a gay kid that breaks his arm. Despite so many people swearing on their mother's life that that's what the story was about. Dear Evan Hansen is a story about an awkward teenager with social anxiety and a broken arm named Evan Hansen.
No shit!
who fabricated a relationship with a recently deceased student named Connor Murphy after a suicide note directed towards him was found by his parents after he died. What they didn't know and what he doesn't tell them is that the letter was actually written by Evan himself as part of his therapy counseling, and the reason Connor had the note on him when he died is because, and I swear I'm not making this up, Connor saw the note and thought it was written by Evan in order for Connor to find it and read it in order to get triggered, despite the two never having spoken to each other until this one moment where he pushes Evan onto the floor.
And no, I'm still not over that being the impetus for this idiocy, in case you were wondering.
Shenanigans then ensue when he keeps the lie going so far to the point of an organization being formed in Connor's memory, his parents and Evan becoming famous on social media, but most importantly of all, yes, even more important than the kid who committed suicide, Evan's crush, Connor's sister Zoe, becomes so hot and bothered by him and, I quote, bringing her brother back, despite her generally despising him and their relationship being far more toxic and dangerous than the show would like to say, that she ends up making out with him on Connor's bed and the two start dating. And that sound that you just heard is the sound of me puking violently from the inside of my mouth. Evan's lies, however, eventually begin to catch up to him, as inconsistencies with his story begin to crop up, and in an attempt to convince one of his friends, Alana Beck, into believing his story, he shows him the suicide note Connor left for him, and for reasons known only to Babu the Invisible Monkey and the Giant Clam of Moran, Alana decides in a big brain move to publish the damn suicide note online for all to see.
Are you crazy? Or just plain stupid?
I'd explain to you why she published it, but I'm gonna save that for the actual movie talk.
I think you can figure out where this is going. The Murphys are now being blamed and harassed on social media, and just when they're at their weakest, Evan, in his infinite wisdom, decides now is the perfect time to tell them that the suicide note was actually his, and that his relationship with Connor was completely non-existent, causing Zoe to break up with him, and the Murphys asking him to leave. As for pressing any charges, calling the police, sending him to juvie, or calling Dr. Phil, he had no consequences for Evan.
More on that later.
He goes home, his mom sings to him about trucks or some shit, the two hug it out, and he and Zoe reconcile, thankfully without the two getting back together, in a park that Connor used to play with when he was a kid that was rebuilt in his memory. The end.
That's the most horrible story I've ever heard.
As you can see, there are some elements that I kept to myself, as talking about them will be instrumental when we talk about the actual movie. But I want to tell you guys right off the bat that, despite all the crazy things that happen in this musical, none of it is actually fun or enjoyable because the story is so bleak and morose, and dealing with such heavy subjects like suicide, depression, social anxiety, and in the case of Pasek and Paul, god-awful songwriting.
There he is, beating that dead horse! Get him!
I do, however, want to address one more time that I do not hate Dear Evan Hansen, this show. I had a lot of things I disliked about it, but I can point to multiple things that the show did that were actually decent, if not outright good. Those feelings and all that goodwill are completely gone for the movie adaptation, which is as good a segue as any to talk about the actual film.
The movie and the musical share many similarities, which is no surprise seeing as how Stephen Levinson, along with Pasek and Paul, are back to work on the story and the music. However, the actual story and plot definitely saw some changes that, for better or worse, definitely make this a different experience than the stage version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this movie into parts in order to fairly examine every inch of it in order to see where it all went wrong. Which means, we should start by addressing the elephant in the room.
This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
I promise I'm going to be level-headed, so to speak, because while this is primarily the big thing everyone loves to mention and complain about, I don't think it's fair to pin the whole blame on the movie's failure on Ben Platt. That being said,
holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Platt's casting in this movie was a massive mistake for multiple different reasons. For starters, look at him! The poor dude was 27 when he did this movie. This is what he looked like in 2021, and this is what I looked like in 2021. He is older than me by literally 7 days. And don't even get me started on the Jufro. What the hell was he thinking with this? He looks like Steve Buscemi in 30 Rock saying,
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
The big problem with the casting here isn't just that he's too old though. The problem is that his casting was done so deliberately in an attempt to recapture the magic that the stage version created. What the movie, and Ben for that matter, clearly don't understand is that his performance on stage is not going to be the same performance that would work on film. Having Ben Platt doing the same performance he did on stage, but on film, is the equivalent of having, say, Kevin Conroy voicing Batman in an adaptation of The Killing Joke. Oh fucking wait!
And yes, I'm perfectly aware that this is less an issue with Ben himself and more with the direction that he was given. However, none of this was an accident. His father, Mark Platt, is also the producer for this movie, which of course led to many accusations of nepotism on his part. Ben himself, to his credit, took the high road and understood the criticisms while apologizing to all of his fans for his poor performance. I'm just kidding. He threw a shit fit and gave the prissiest, self-absorbed response I have ever seen in my life. No joke, this is what he said.
It is, and so if my thing is something that I can't control at all, which is my age, then like, bring it on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad it's not about the performance or my voice or anything that actually matters. The fact that I created the role and workshopped it for 3 years and did all of the out-of-town productions and originated on Broadway and received the accolades that I did, and also not really understanding the fact that, like, were I not to do the movie, it probably wouldn't get made. There wasn't really any question on anyone actually connected to the piece or who was actually a part of the film. There was never any kind of discussion that it wouldn't be me.
Don't fuck with me, fellas!
You can almost hear the erection popping as he talks about himself. Okay, Ben. Alright, fair point. You're right. You know what? You're right. You got a point. It's not your age that should matter, it's your performance. So, how exactly was your performance in this movie?
I think, sorry.
Gee, good thing we're not focusing on your age, Ben. God forbid the discourse would distract us from your Razzie-nominated performance.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. This is one of the biggest falls from grace I have ever seen from an up-and-coming talent like this since Lea Michele.
I'm kidding. Lea Michele never had any grace.
It really saddens me to see him in this film because I know Ben Platt is a legitimately amazing actor and an even more wonderful singer. But this movie is not a representative of those talents. It is abundantly clear that Ben gave a fantastic performance on Broadway many years ago during his prime and even earned a Tony Award for Best Actor at an early age. These are not small features, this is huge. Here, however, the only thing more distracting from his appallingly bad performance is the unsettling presentation that shows him towering over a then 24-year-old Caitlin Dever during the performance of Only Us, where he straight up looks like an older gentleman about to take advantage of a young woman. And before anybody says anything, I know that they are roughly the same age, but look at them. One clearly looks like a teenager, and the other thought that a Jufro, weight loss, and shaving cream could take 10 years off his face.
Okay, that one might have been a little too harsh, I admit. But in my defense, Ben brought all of this entirely on himself. If this movie really cannot be made without him, and this is the best performance that we can get from him, then maybe it's best that the movie never gets made. And I hate to say it, but it doesn't end with just him. The rest of this movie is bad for different reasons. The most egregious, in my opinion, being the ridiculous excuse for direction that this movie had.
We accept the love we think we deserve.
Can we make them know that they deserve more?
We can try.
This is a scene from The Perks of Being a Wallflower, a beloved young adult novel turned into a beloved young adult movie starring Logan Lerman, Emma Watson, and future Crime Against Humanity Ezra Miller. The film is about a socially awkward teenager without a broken arm named Charlie, who's always watching life from the sidelines until two charismatic students become his mentors and help Charlie discover the joys of friendship, first love, music, and so much more, all the while a teacher sparks hope in Charlie's dreams of becoming a writer. However, as his new friends prepare to leave for college, Charlie's inner sadness threatens to shatter his newfound confidence. To many, this is a relatable look at what teenage life is like through the eyes of actual teenagers, even though they're all in their damn 20s. To others, it is the fakest and silliest example of teenagers being written by grown-ups that's way too conservative to be considered realistic. Yeah, sure.
Oh. I don't know what this is, but it's kind of hot.
If you ask me, it's the movie that gave rise to the Tumblr era, and if you remember what the internet was like during that age, then you remember a lot of gifs of Logan Lerman and Ezra Miller being shared around, and probably also saw this wonderful image being shared on social media. Yeah, you know exactly what this is, and if you don't remember, now you do. The movie was inescapable, and not in a good way in my opinion. Having watched it as an adult, I see exactly why this movie spoke to so many people, though it definitely feels like a movie that has aged about as gracefully as Woody Allen's reputation. Still, the positives are there, and as far as teen dramas go, this is easily one of the best and most easily accessible, and hey, at least it didn't pointlessly include one of its characters becoming a school shooter, but what stupid company would be dumb enough to do that? And I walked right into that one!
The reason I'm talking about this movie is for one very important reason: Stephen Chbosky. Chbosky wrote The Perks of Being a Wallflower in 1999, and despite multiple failed attempts to ban the book and have it moved to the adult book section by scared parents, who were afraid of kids reading a book that talks about masturbation,
because kids and teenagers are totally not masturbating or watching porn, especially not on any of the readily accessible methods that you yourself happily gave them because you were too lazy to be a parent. Way to go, Deidre!
The book became a massive bestseller, selling over 1 million copies and gained a massive cult following around children, teens, and young adults. Despite the polarizing reviews at the time, which mostly came from conservative dipshits that were afraid of a book talking about sex and homosexuality in a positive way making the baby Jesus cry.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the—
Nope.
The book's popularity garnered enough buzz for a film adaptation to be made, one which wouldn't see the light of day until September 21st, 2012, with Chbosky not only doing the screenplay based off of his own book, but also sitting down in the directing chair, which to his credit was a very smart move as he was already an experienced screenwriter and director despite this being his first big project.
The Perks of Being a Wallflower was released with the best possible reception that an adaptation like this could have received. Reviews for the film were extremely positive, receiving around an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. The film was a huge hit with its intended demographic. It gave us the last great performance by Ezra Miller before they ruined their career and their reputation forever. And despite it not being a gigantic financial hit, the movie made over twice its budget with a total of $33.3 million worldwide on a $13 million budget.
Hint! Hint! Universal!
The point I'm trying to get across here is that Chbosky has more than proven himself to be the perfect man for an adaptation such as this, as the serious and heartbreaking subject matter is perfectly in Chbosky's wheelhouse, along with the sentimentality of growing up with his surprising hit Wonder. He also had experience when it came to writing musicals for the 2017 live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. So with all these credentials out of the way, I need to ask, what the fuck happened with Dear Evan Hansen?
The whole goddamn movie suffers from an identity crisis. It's trying to be a serious teen drama, it's also trying to be inspiring and uplifting, and it's trying to be a musical at the same time, and it fails tremendously for reasons that surprisingly were not even Pasek and Paul's fault.
The anonymous ones.
No, don't worry. We'll get to that.
It's hard to explain what's wrong with the direction of this movie without needlessly and unfairly comparing it to other movie musicals. But Dear Evan Hansen was directed in a way that was too scared to be a musical, while still trying to cater to fans of the original stage show. Meaning that while sequences have been altered and ridiculous decisions leave me asking why they even bothered, the movie tries in earnest to fulfill the musical aspect of the show while still trying to maintain the seriousness of the story in a balanced way. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah, far be it from me to say that Pasek and Paul's terrible blend of generic feel-good blandness doesn't work with a story as serious and morose as this one. One which, according to Pasek and Paul themselves, is based on a true story. of how they heard some guy in high school die of a drug overdose and people started reacting to it in different ways.
It was based on, very loosely, an incident that happened in my high school of observing that a kid who I didn't really know very well and many of my classmates didn't know very well passed away, and once he passed away he became everyone's best friend after his death, and people began to use his death as a means of being seen and being heard and being noticed in a way, and I sort of did it too, and I became sort of obsessed with this kid who I didn't really know.
Dude, what the f***?
But people would also use his death as the subject of their college essays, and in these really sort of messed up ways. And when Justin and I met and we went to college together, we would also talk about this idea, and that this phenomenon wasn't just with this singular kid who had died, but also the way that 9/11 affected our generation, or the way that we glom onto a tragedy that might not necessarily belong to us.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
The problem, however, isn't just that these songs are terrible or don't mesh with the story. The problem is that the songs were not shot as musical numbers, despite this being, you know, a fucking musical!
God, how do I explain this in a way that makes sense? Okay, you got In the Heights the musical, and then you got In the Heights the movie.
With the former, you have an impressively choreographed musical number in a wonderfully paced story presented on a stage big enough where both the set and the actors are all visible for all to see, as the imagination is allowing the audience to fill in the blanks as to what might be happening. Then you have the movie that takes that impressively choreographed musical number and fills in the blanks that the imagination creates with one of the most inventive, exciting, and creative musical sequences of all time. One worthy for both the song in question and the musical it belongs to.
Dear Evan Hansen has none of that. There's no creativity, no imagination, and while I'm not expecting any excitement in a story like this, I'm also not expecting every musical number to be so unbelievably fucking boring. But hold on, I hear you saying. Didn't you say that this movie was trying to cater to fans of the original stage show? How can they do that if the musical numbers suck? I'm glad that you asked. Allow me to explain, you incredibly annoying individual.
What the fuck was that? Anyway, yes, the movie tries to cater to fans of the original stage show. Notice, however, how I didn't say fans of the musical, or fans of the story, or anything like that. See, when I refer to fans of the stage show, I mean that literally. The movie presents nearly every song, the ones it didn't choose to remove, more on that later, as these stale, bland performances as if they were being performed on stage instead of on a film set. Every single song is just people standing, people walking, people sitting, and if you're extremely lucky, people driving. Those who actually saw the musical, or downloaded a bootleg like yours truly, know that while this is technically a musical, a majority of the songs are choreographed very simplistically while allowing the drama of the story to unfold as the stage works with its actors to breathe more life into the story presented in the songs. At least if they had any. The problem is that while that works perfectly on stage, it doesn't translate well at all when presented on film.
The fucking irony about all of this is that by keeping the same structure that the stage show had, it has the opposite effect on film. Because film means show, don't tell. So you have a wonderful song waving through a window which sings about one's insecurities and their inability to stand out in the world they desperately want to be a part of, only to feel like you're being walked over and ignored by everyone around you. A song that was beautifully presented on stage with a combination of screens displaying social media sites, while people familiar to Evan Hansen are walking past or turning their backs on him as he desperately sings for someone to hear,
is presented almost literally as Evan is staring into a window before the direction changes to him singing in a hallway as people are casually minding their own business as he sings openly and, I guess in a non-diegetic way. Otherwise, several bullies will be shoving his ass in a locker just to shut him the fuck up.
Shut when you think about it.
This is also another good example of why Evan Hansen was completely miscast for this movie. Not only does he look way too old and too tall to fit in high school, he also makes every one of those scenes where he's surrounded by actual adults that much more jarring. Especially when he starts singing. Speaking of which...
When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna set a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised.
Get down off the cross, honey. Somebody needs the wood.
I made it no secret that I cannot stand Pasek and Paul. I hate how none of their songs have any weight or meaning to any of them, and I despise the fact that they're glorified radio hits that can easily be used outside of their intended property. They're such terrible songwriters, and it baffles me to this day that How Far I'll Go lost the Oscar for Best Original Song to this embarrassment from La La Land.
They're in the bars or through the smokescreen of the crowded restaurants.
That's disgusting.
Make him stop!
That being said, Dear Evan Hansen marks one of the few times where their music almost works. It's one of the few things I didn't complain about as much during my old Dear Evan Hansen video.
My sister's hot. What the hell? Bye-bye!
Except for that one. Don't get me wrong, these songs aren't particularly good, but for every decent musical number that exists only for radio success, there's the occasional song that actually does fit in within the story and helps to move it forward. And guess how many of those songs were completely removed from the movie version?
In one of the most ass-backwards decisions made for Dear Evan Hansen the movie, 4 songs from the original musical were omitted from the movie as part of the already terrible direction that it was going for. The show opener, Anybody Have a Map, Disappear, which was Connor's only musical number that's not a duet, To Break in a Glove, which is Connor's father Larry's only musical number in the entire show, not counting Requiem, and finally, Good For You, which is the only song in this show in which Evan Hansen received any kind of repercussion for his actions.
Trying to fix the story, Kinda sounds to me like you're trying to give Evan even less consequences for him to be held accountable for. Either that, or you deliberately rewrote the script to tell the story from Evan's perspective in a narcissistic attempt to capture Ben Platt's performance while screwing over every other character who had an important number in the original musical. Oh wait, that's exactly what they did.
This marks a huge problem for more than just a few missing songs. I'm not done with you, Larry. It also marks a huge problem with the structure of the story itself. Look, I hated Anybody Have a Map as a song. It's terrible, the lyrics suck, and the production sounds like ass, making it the worst possible song to open the show with.
We get it! Move on!
The song itself, for better or worse, is still an important piece to introduce the cast and characters of the show, along with giving the audience a close look into the lives of the most important characters in the lives of Connor and Evan.
Oh, fuck this movie. No reason why, just what this movie does to Evan's mother is nothing short of criminal, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
And of course, this wouldn't be a terrible movie adaptation of a popular musical without a terrible added-for-the-movie musical number made to generate Oscar buzz. This movie has 2 of them, but I'm only gonna focus on one for now, as it is easily, without a doubt, the biggest misfire that this movie has at its disposal.
The anonymous ones.
This is a song called The Anonymous Ones. No, I'm sorry, I mean The Anonymous Ones. The Anonymous Ones. Anonymous Ones. Get it? It's like anonymous, but it's us. And we're the ones. The anonymous ones.
Anonymous. I hate that. It's like that Katy Perry song, Unconditional. It's like, that's not how you say anonymous. Anonymous. I don't like it.
Somewhere, Stephen Sondheim is rolling in his grave so hard he's bumping into Howard Ashman by mistake. And they're both fucking pissed.
This is a song made specifically for the character Alana Beck, written by Pasek and Paul along with Alana Beck herself, Amanda Stenberg. Or as I like to call her, the reason why I hate Huey from The Boys.
You're a fucking pathetic cunt.
The Anonymous Ones is a song that was written to flesh out Alana Beck a bit more in the movie, since her character was so one-dimensional that you can almost see directly through her no matter what amazing actress of color portrayed her on stage. Honestly, this entire character in general was such a huge can of worms that I completely forgot about her in the original video that I made because she really was that one note and significant to the story. Her big motivation is that she's this big overachiever and she only exists to be the reason Evan Hansen is forced to admit the lies that he's told and then completely disappears from the rest of the story afterwards. For God's sake, Jared had more of a necessary role in the story. Jared! Fucking Jared!
The song itself is just fine. I mean, it helps that Amanda Stenberg is clearly a better songwriter than Pascal, so she at least was able to give the song some semblance of weight and managed to give her attention-starved character more of a personality. And to be fair, she was also able to work more with what little the original gave her. There is, however, one little problem. One tiny little issue. One itsy-bitty little fucking predicament. Alana Beck, for try as Amanda Stenberg did, is still a very insignificant part of the story, and that song added nothing to it.
Alana Beck is already a very controversial character within the show because she is a character who does very little in the grand scheme of things and didn't really have any function except to publish Connor's quote-unquote suicide note, causing Evan to come clean of his deception and making his world fall apart in the process. Not since Amber from Invincible has a character with good intentions been failed so badly by the writing that the character comes across as unlikable and hated by a majority of the audience. Oh, and both just happen to be people of color. Good choice, assholes!
Alana Beck's only musical number that was made solely for the film adaptation of the musical serves as nothing more than a glorified feel-bad song about struggles with mental health and living under medication and being seen as invisible by the world around you. Hold on. A song about feeling invisible in a world that ignores your presence? In which you wish to be a part of but can't because of your mental problems and anxieties? That's waving through a window!
There are those anonymous ones stuck inside the perfect frame they're faking.
When you're falling in a forest and there's nobody around, do you ever really crash or even make a sound?
Oh, you've gotta be goddamn kidding me! Are you serious? No wonder this character is so insignificant! She's literally just a Black Evan Hansen! No, not that Black Evan. I mean another Black Evan Hansen, and one with even less narcissistic tendencies.
Give me a fucking break. So we got 4 of the original songs missing in order to help stroke Ben Platt's ego, 2 songs that add nothing to the movie and only exist as glorified Oscar porn, which failed because none of them got nominated for good reason, and you got the existing soundtrack being butchered by the god-awful directing where Ben Platt is belting songs to a dinner table full of confused and terrified faces.
For forever this way, this way.
Zoe, go get the shotgun. Huh?
Is there any song in this entire movie that wasn't ruined by terrible decision making? Actually, there is.
There is one song in this entire movie that gets all of the high energy, all the fun, all the excitement, all the creativity in both direction and execution. One that truly feels like an authentic musical performance. So, what is it?
Dear Evan Hansen, we've been way too out of touch. Things have been crazy, and it sucks that we don't talk that much.
I should tell you that I think of you each night. I rub my nipples and start moaning with delight.
You know what? No! I am not talking about this damn song. I already talked about the original, and this shit can burn like Alexander's letters after he published the Reynolds pamphlet. Damn. Instead, let's talk about the characters because I have plenty to say there than I do for this trash that should have been cut instead of good for you.
Holy shit!
Exclamation mark!
I think adding new songs to the musical allows it to feel fresh as time goes on. Of course, people evolve and stories evolve, and you have new ideas that are constantly coming to play.
As I said before, part of the big push for this movie's marketing was the fact that the movie was going to put an effort to try and mend some of the issues faced in the musical. Any fan of Dear Evan Hansen can agree that no matter how much they like it, the musical had some serious issues that needed to be addressed.
The movie adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen is the perfect opportunity to fix the wrongs of the original show and make the film the standout and definitive version of the story. This was Dear Evan Hansen's redemption arc. I was actually rooting for the movie to put in the effort and actually prove me wrong and become a better film. Honest, I was wrong about a lot of things in my life, from thinking that my real dad gives a shit about me, to thinking that Elon Musk couldn't get as stupid as he appears to be. I love the idea of being proven wrong. So, did the movie version of Dear Evan Hansen, if nothing else, fix some of the problems of the original? And further question, does it still work as a movie with the elements that it kept from the original? The short answer for all of these is, of course, no, goddammit! This movie is a train wreck too large for me to spend precious minutes of my life getting into. So for my sanity, and yours, I'm going to be breaking these issues down into little bite-sized chunks for easy consumption. Hey, we're in this together, gang. We're going to get through this if it kills me. Now, I'm going to be separating these in 3 different subcategories between the things they kept from the original, small changes that they made, and huge changes that were absolutely detrimental and completely changed the story in every direction that you can imagine. So let's jump right into it.
Dear Evan Hansen.
For the most part, the movie stays very close to the original show in terms of pacing and structure. The story follows a teenager with social anxiety and a broken arm named Evan Hansen, who gets into a misunderstood altercation with a kid named Connor Murphy. He then proceeds to write his name on his cast and throw a shit fit over a letter Evan was printing that mentioned his sister Zoe, thinking that Evan had that letter written with the sole intent of Connor reading it in order to trigger him.
What the fuck?!
Connor then commits suicide off screen, or off stage, and his parents Larry and Cynthia meet with Evan personally regarding the letter that they found on Connor's body, which was addressed to him personally. Evan insists that the two weren't exactly close, and then he tries to give him the letter so that they can keep it, only for them to look at Connor's name on his arm and remain convinced that the two were friends, much to Evan's socially anxious chagrin. Evan has dinner with the Murphys where he decides to keep the charade going by singing a song about all the happy tree-related memories he and Connor do not have, all the while the family just sits there watching him make scary faces while singing, looking like Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
Stick your cock up her ass, you motherfucking worthless cocksucker.
Evan getting Jared's help to write fake emails and backtracking them so that they can prove that Connor and Evan had a relationship together, all the while the two are singing Sincerely Me alongside a phantom Connor whose lyrics change based on how the flow of the emails go, leading to this stupid moment.
My sister's hot. What the hell, my man?
Connor getting ridiculed for his clothing and being called a school shooter, though in the show it was Jared who makes this off-color remark, while in the movie it's some John Q nobody who says it, causing Evan to snicker awkwardly due to the awkwardness of the situation, and Connor taking his frustrations out on him as a result. Evan awkwardly talking to Zoe following the blowout he got from Connor, only for Evan to awkwardly shoot down the conversation because of his poor social skills, and the fact that he's talking to a girl clearly out of his league.
However, while this does happen in the show, it happens during the performance of Waving Through a Window. And in the movie, he straight up does the Naruto run. You can't make this shit up. They actually shot and directed it like this. How can I possibly joke about it when it's doing it for me already?
Zoe having reservations about Connor after his passing due to horrible memories about him that prevent her from remembering him fondly, all the while the Murphy family sings the song Requiem in order to cope with their loss, Evan hanging out at the Murphys' place in an almost parasite-like fashion while being seen almost like a distant relative and schmoozing it up with his crush Zoe, eventually singing the most skin-crawlingly incesty love ballad I've ever heard in my fucking life, if I could tell her. Evan and his friends starting a foundation in Connor's memory aptly titled The Connor Project, while trying to raise awareness of his passing and helping to glorify his suicide, helping to keep his memory alive by restoring a broken down park that Connor used to love many years ago. Evan singing the song You Will Be Found while wearing Connor's tie that Cynthia gives him the night before, leading to both Connor and Evan to go viral and causing the Connor Project to skyrocket in popularity.
And if you're curious why there aren't any terrible 6-hour-long videos of people who look like this trying to discredit the whole thing as a hoax, your guess is as good as mine.
Evan and Zoe beginning a relationship whom he starts to prioritize over the Connor project and his friends, though in a small fashion because God forbid we have anything bad happen to Evan. The Murphys inviting Evan's mother Heidi to dinner where they announce that they wish to give Connor's college fund to Evan, leading to her rejecting their charity and causing Evan to become the most hateable human being I have ever seen in my life.
And I know that I'm a burden. I'm the worst thing that ever happened to you, and I just ruined your life, okay?
You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Sorry, I can't give you anything more than that.
It's not my fault if other people can.
I'm gonna hit you.
Alana Beck starting to question Evan's friendship with Connor and finding inconsistencies with his story, causing Evan to show her the suicide note and ask her not to show it to anyone instead of just taking the note back for safekeeping. I get that Evan is acting out of desperation, and it's obvious that people make mistakes. But did this imbecile seriously think that she wouldn't do anything with the letter? Lose it, misplace it, accidentally give it to someone else, or I don't know. Publishing the damn thing online for all to read?!
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
The letter going viral and the internet being the internet starts attacking the Murphy family, causing them to fight amongst each other, leading Evan to finally confess the truth about him and Connor. The Murphys are heartbroken, Zoe breaks up with him, Cynthia asks him to leave, and Evan sings his sorrows out towards Phil as we discover that the reason Evan broke his arm was because he jumped out of a tree trying to kill himself.
What?
More on that later. Evan mopes in his place as Heidi tries to comfort him and apologizes for being a decent mother that he did not appreciate because he's a fucking asshole, and all the while trying to do her best because of this little bastard's victim mentality, sings a stupid song about trucks, the two hug it out, and all is forgiven.
Is there another truck coming to our driveway?
Evan goes to the newly rebuilt park made in Connor's memory where he reunites with Zoe and the two talk about the future, also confirming that the Murphys are not pursuing legal action on him, which makes this optimistic ending a fucking tragedy. The two go their separate ways and Evan writes one last letter saying that things are gonna be better from here on in. D. Thank God. End.
I expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
We're gonna need a bigger vote. Holy shit, how much did I write for this fucking video?
There are those anonymous ones stuck inside the perfect frame they're faking.
In order of severity, let's address the changes that they made for the movie. From the reasonable ones to the absurd ones, let's see whether or not they improve the adaptation or make things worse. Spoiler alert, no. I'm not gonna nitpick every stupid detail changed from the musical because nitpicking is bullshit. Looking at you, nostalgia critic. So I'm only gonna focus on the real important changes that drastically alter the movie, of which this film has approximately 5. I'm gonna focus on the first 4 and the last one is gonna be getting its own separate part. But for the first few, I'm tackling these based on severity. So let's talk about the most inoffensive changes to the film, shall we? I'm gonna give credit where it's due. The movie actually did make a few significant changes to the story that helped it more than hurt it. For the most part. Evan and Zoe's disturbing relationship is definitely one of them. Evan and Zoe's romance was one of the most disturbing and uncomfortable romances I've ever seen since Khal Drogo and Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones.
Her name is Daenerys Targaryen.
I don't fucking care! Really take a moment to read between the lines here. This is not a story of a boy in love getting the girl and the two living happily ever after. This is a creepy interloper who fakes a relationship with her recently deceased brother and kisses her without consent on her brother's bed no less, who then emotionally manipulates her and causes her to make out with him again in her brother's bed in a state of emotions for which Evan takes complete advantage of and then kisses her without her pulling away this time.
So, my eyes are correct!
The movie gives them a bit more to work with in terms of developing their relationship before finally committing to the whole boyfriend-girlfriend thing, and they hit it off almost like slowly budding friends. Hell, Evan even gets away with this one really good singer that Zoe and her family's financial expenses.
Well, my mom always says it's better to be rich than poor. So.
Yeah, well, your mom's probably never been rich then.
Yeah, you've probably never been poor.
Eat the rich!
In fact, one of the best changes this movie does without any doubt is the whole "you've given me my brother back" moment, where in the movie Evan and Zoe talk gently, everything is calm, right as the bane of my existence plays its final note. The two then hug it out in a more emotional and gentle fashion instead of the possible bump uglies they did on Connor's bed. Gross.
Let me reiterate, this does not make their relationship good. It's still toxic, it's still inappropriate, and he's still technically manipulating her. But at least here, Stephen Levinson decided to put a leash on the creepy little shit to keep him from being just a teensy bit less hateable. Speaking of creepy little shits...
Oh, Jared. You really can't seem to catch a break with me, can you?
Paint me the picture. You're in your bedroom, you've got Zoe Murphy's Instagram, a bunch of weird off-brand cell phones.
That's not what happened. Obviously, I was climbing a tree and I fell.
You fell out of a tree? What are you, like an acorn? Hey, Connor! Loving the new hair length. Very school shooter chic. I was just kidding. It was a joke?
Yeah, no, it was funny. I'm laughing. Can't you tell? Am I not laughing hard enough for you?
You're such a freak. I can't believe you tried to kiss Zoe Murphy on her brother's bed after he died. Hey, asshole, aren't you gonna say anything?
Is that a button with Connor's face on it?
I'm selling them for a nominal fee at lunch tomorrow.
You making money off of this?
Well, I'm not the only one. Haven't you seen those wristbands with Connor's initials on them that Sabrina Patel started selling during free period? I rub my nipples and start talking with delight.
Why was you right there?
I hate you, Jared! There are several words that can be used to describe Jared. Obnoxious, homophobic, opportunistic, annoying, and probably has the most annoying laugh I've ever heard next to Mozart from Amadeus.
Why was you right there?
But more than that, Jared is just dead weight. He is without any doubt the most useless character in this show next to Alana Beck. He doesn't contribute to anything useful except for helping Evan to write the fake emails about him and Connor, and stays around to be part of the Connor project just to sell merchandise with Connor's face in it. The only other significant thing about him is that he chews out Evan for acting like an asshole, which would be appreciated if it wasn't such an ugly case of pot calling the kettle black, but none of it actually goes anywhere, and none of it really matters at the end because he has nothing to do with the story any less than Alana Beck does.
Jared is like an infected pimple that exists within the story, but doesn't go away no matter how much Stridex you rub on him. He's responsible for some of the most vile and offensive jokes told throughout the story, and straight up calls Connor a school shooter because of his appearance. You'd think that with the way this movie is trying to change things and improve on the story, priority number one would be to eliminate this little parasite from existence. Right?
I was kidding. You obviously should not talk to her. You were a literal disaster.
Okay, where do I start with this idiocy? First, I want to make it clear. My feelings are strictly towards the character, not the actor in question. Secondly, race-swapping Jared isn't really a problem, as the show already has enough of a diversity issue that not even Jordan Fisher could fix during his run on the show. What is a problem, for me at least, is that they took a homophobic little dipshit.
Well, my bump dominated and captured the flag, and I got to second base below the bra with this girl from Israel who's gonna be in the army, so... yeah! Hopefully that answers your question.
And turn him into a gay little dipshit.
Well, I put on 13 pounds of pure muscle. Also, I hooked up with this Brazilian dude who's literally a supermodel. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
So let me get this shit straight, which is ironic considering that neither me nor movie Jared are straight. You have an offensively obnoxious homophobe who loves to make incest and school shooter jokes, who in the first minute upon us meeting him, lets us all know that he and Evan are only friends cause their parents are friends and that they're not necessarily close, capitalized on the death of a kid whom he mocked in his first appearance on stage, and only calls Evan out in his behavior when it doesn't convenience him personally, a character so horrifically unlikable he drags whatever goodwill the show had down with him, And your best attempt to fix him is to turn him from an annoying best friend to an annoying gay best friend? Who still does the gay and incest jokes? Who still tells Evan that they're not real friends? And whom you still push into the background with nothing to do after you won't be found? Seriously? That's it?
What is the point of this thing?
I swear to God, they kept Jared almost exactly the same, except they made him black and queer, and in an ironic twist of fate, they kept him absent from most of the movie. Film Jared has less time on screen than OG Jared had on stage. Only here, he's not only the token black friend, he's also the token gay friend. In other words, by trying to fix a problematic character in order to reduce controversy and, let's be honest, try to score diversity brownie points, they made an already offensive character even more offensive by making him a token minority who only appears when the movie needs him to.
How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up?
They would have seriously have been better off just having Will Rowland making jokes about Evan giving Connor a rim job for 90 minutes, and the end result would have been the same, and probably would have cost less than $28 million fucking dollars. What a complete waste of a good actor like Nick Dodani. He deserves so much better than this. And speaking of characters who deserve better than this... Oh, Larry, what have they done to you? Of all the baffling changes and omissions that they made for this movie, what they did with Larry is just sad. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a fan of fathers in any respect, and that's mostly on account of childhood trauma that I'm not gonna get into here, but Larry Murphy was a wonderful case of a good parent who didn't always do the right thing, but kept on trying when things got tough. It's hard to be a parent, especially when your son is a drug-addicted asshole. Allegedly. Larry doesn't get a lot of credit as his better half Cynthia does in the show, but together they make the best out of a difficult situation even though the two are struggling to keep up with everything going on around their family. So when the tragedy strikes, it hits them both hard, and instead of finding confrontation, they try looking for answers as they try to get past each other's gripes they shared in order to find solace following the death of their son. Had this been a better written story, this would have been a beautiful message for any parents, grieving or not, that it's never too late to say I'm sorry or too late to do the right thing. Parenting is tough, but like any work in progress, all it takes is a little effort. Unless you're a fat piece of shit who failed so hard at being a parent he had to start over with a different family, leaving his old one behind without so much as a goodbye or see you later to his now 29-year-old son who is still pissed about the ordeal. But hey, nobody's perfect, am I right?
This is really bumming me out.
Okay, enough with my daddy issues. So what did the movie do with Larry that warrants a mention here? Well, he's not Connor's father. Or rather, he's not Connor's real father. For some reason that I cannot understand or fathom why, the movie decided to chalk up another diversity point by having the lovely and wonderful Danny Pino play Larry as a stepfather instead of a biological father. Now, before all of you get up in my case, I'm not here to make an argument about real parents versus step-parents, as in my opinion, both can easily disappoint just the same. My issue with this change is, like with Jared, Larry gets pushed into the background for the majority of the movie and doesn't develop in any way either as a parent or as a character of his own. This is where the elimination of some of the songs from the original show really start to become a problem for the story. The movie opted to use the songs that could be heard in the radio in order to crap out a mediocre soundtrack that proved to be more successful than the actual movie, instead of the songs that actually helped to tell the story or provide any kind of character development whatsoever. In Larry's case, we lost one of the more grounded songs in the musical to Breaking a Glove, a 4-minute long duet with Evan regarding an old baseball glove they found in his workshop that he gave to Connor several years ago. At first glance, this sounds like a very stupid song about how to put on a baseball glove and nothing more. But to Pasek and Paul's very little credit, they actually made the glove a metaphor for parenthood, as it relates to Larry and his son Connor, even having the song be used to let Larry vent out his frustrations about his son's death.
This is probably the song with the most subtlety that the two have ever written, which admittedly doesn't set the bar high, but it's still worth pointing out. So, what does the movie do?
I bought that 2 years ago. I thought, so stupid.
What? That's it?
That's it. The scene on its own feels like complete and meaningless filler because that added connection with his son has now been severely weakened, if not outright removed. And what pisses me off more than anything is the wasted opportunity and the implications that it creates. Really think about this. You take an established parental figure within the story and turn him into a step-parent. Tensions between him and Connor would be through the roof. Of course, the two would likely not get along too well, but that tension and that animosity could have resulted in brilliant writing and storytelling. Because you have a stepfather trying to connect with a son whom he does want to love and whose life he wants to be a part of, but he just can't seem to do so, and not from lack of trying. This could have been a wonderful opportunity to add more to Connor's backstory, to give more to Larry's, to show that there was love in that relationship even if he never always did his best at showing it. Hell, maybe they could have added a phantom duet between him and his now deceased son, where we could see a reflection of Connor and how he truly felt for better or worse versus Larry trying to show his son how much he saw him as a son and not as a stepson despite all the bad blood that the two might have had.
The movie had a great setup here and it completely wasted it in favor of keeping the spotlight on Evan Hansen, who has no connection with Connor whatsoever, and at this stage in the story has burrowed his way so deep into the Murphy's household he's become a distant relation, while dreaming of having relations with their daughter.
You make me sick!
The movie has no desire to explore the broken relationship between Connor and his father, who did the best he could after everything that happened. Shit, it doesn't even bother hearkening to Evan's own personal life, since his father left him when he was young. He could have seen a bigger connection with Connor and Larry, as he could easily relate to Connor feeling alone in this world and would look up to Larry as the father he wished he had. But the story doesn't care. As long as it continued to keep Evan on the spotlight and having him come off as a saintly angel who did absolutely nothing wrong. And that perfectly leads us to... Before I continue, let's go back to my old video, as I believe this important moment will be relevant for this discussion.
Evan's deception never gets any kind of comeuppance. The Murphys keep his secret and nobody finds out the truth, meaning that he essentially got away with almost tearing a family apart after manipulating and lying to them for so long.
So, this movie attempted something completely different. And as much as I would love to sit here and tell you that it was a fantastically well-deserved change, like many other things, it didn't change anything.
Without any doubt, one of my biggest problems with Dear Evan Hansen as a story is that, like I mentioned a year ago, Evan is a selfish sociopath who gets away with all of the crimes that he committed and gets absolutely no repercussions for his actions. Nothing. The most that he gets as a punishment is that his precious Zoe breaks up with him after all of the lies and suffering he put her family through. But even she ends up forgiving him despite not getting back together with him, and the Murphys never go public about what he did so as to not, and I quote, ruin his life. It is an embarrassing ending and proof that you can get away with anything if you're white and privileged.
And now you know why Broadway was hell-bent on casting a black actor to play Evan Hansen. Because like everyone else in the world has pointed out, if Evan were a person of color, or a minority of any other kind, this story would have ended with police sirens instead of finale.
And to further add salt onto an open wound that was already splashed into the ocean while having leeches feeding all over it, the show tries to use a get-out-of-jail-free card for all of Evan's actions by revealing that the reason he broke his arm in the first place was due to a botched suicide attempt that happened weeks before the story started.
So last summer, I just felt so alone.
You can tell me.
The tree, I didn't fall. I let go.
Oh, fuck you! Fuck you, pal!
I mean, I don't want you to jump and say you have the capability. Oh, look, he's flying!
As you can probably imagine, I found this whole thing just a little bit horrifically offensive and dismissive of everything that Evan did throughout the events of the story. Not only that, but it also paints a really horrible picture of mental illness. Evan as a whole is one of the most despicable and unlikable characters that I've ever seen in any form of fiction. He's selfish, manipulative, and just as opportunistic as Jared. Though to his credit, at least Jared didn't kiss someone without their consent. I hope. The movie still kept every single aspect of Evan's fall from grace, no pun intended, right down to the embarrassing truck song that his mother sings to him.
Is there another truck coming to our driveway?
But as cringeworthy as the image of a 27-year-old Ben Platt being called out by a 61-year-old Julianne Moore is, and it is, the movie hits us with what is probably the biggest change revolving around Evan Hansen himself. Evan actually confesses.
I was never friends with Connor Murphy. I lied. Repeatedly. To his family. To Alana. To all of you. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but, please. Connor's family doesn't deserve your hatred. I do. I'm sorry.
Holy shit.
This is a huge, significant change from the original, and one I've desperately wanted to see ever since watching the show for the first time on my computer.
Sure, Evan looks like a goddamn serial killer when he does all of this, but to Evan's credit, he actually apologizes. And he tells everyone that he is responsible, which means that he's already holding himself more accountable than the fuckwits from Channel Awesome did. No, Doug, I will never forget.
There now, you see, there's no problem too big that it can't be solved by a humble apology. A humble apology. A humble apology.
I've wanted to see Evan either be called out or him confessing for all of the things that he's done, and this movie took it a step further by doing it online for all to see. Even the way he does it is so genuine, doing so via smartphone in a clearly unrehearsed and nervous tone instead of some pathetic loser sighing in front of a camera and reciting some pre-written apology trying to act like he didn't know what he was doing.
I just want to send out prayers to the ones that was lost last night. We're actually working right now to identify the families so we can help assist them through this tough time. You know,
It's an ambulance hit the crow.
My fans really mean the world to me, and I always just really want to leave them with a positive experience.
Yeah, okay, you know what's coming. If I'm being positive towards this change, what exactly is my problem? Well, remember when I said that while this is a fantastically well-deserved change, that it didn't change anything? Come here. A little closer. A little closer. A little closer. It didn't change anything!
Evan is basically a mini internet celebrity at this point, and he confessed to everyone on social media via livestream that he not only lied about his relationship with Connor, but that the whole thing with him and the Murphys was a result of a letter that he wrote himself that Connor had with him when he died. He straight up told everyone that he lied and kept that lie going because of the benefits that he got from it, and literally nothing comes from this. Nothing! Nobody gets angry at him, nobody accuses him of anything, nobody even apologizes to the Murphys and redirects their frustrations onto him. Despite Evan confessing to everything that he did, much like the original, he still gets no repercussions or any kind of comeuppance for what he did.
But wait, I hear you writing on your keyboards. Evan's reputation was ruined and now he was back to being an outcast in school. Yes, he went back. As in, things literally went back to business as usual in his school, which, when you think about it, is really nothing worth complaining over, since Evan didn't really have any bullies or terrible grades or really anything for that matter. Sure, he's got social anxiety and has a tough time making friends and he has to go to therapy, but he's still going to goddamn therapy! It's like, where was this when I was in school? Oh wait. Oh crap. I think I just awakened a terrible memory.
Goodbye, everyone. I'll remember you all in therapy.
But anyway, there's nothing in either iteration that shows that he is not incapable of making any friends. He isn't exactly Shoko Komi either. Evan Hansen has zero problems at school or at home outside of his mother needing to work in order for the two to not be fucking homeless. And even his anxieties are being carefully managed since he's, again, talking to a goddamn therapist! Evan Hansen has no problems!
Evan confessing for what he did wasn't an act of taking accountability for what he did. It's a glorified reset button that puts everything back to normal for him. He's still a nobody at his school despite this whole thing being a huge deal and the writing failing the movie spectacularly, but he doesn't get any kind of backlash for it. We are living in a generation that's very quick to force people into taking accountability for their actions, for better or for worse. Even those who refuse to accept it did the horrible things and continue to play the victim. And that same generation never forgets or lets anyone forget about the horrible stuff that they've done, whether it's recent or in the past. This movie expects me to believe that a generation of people who are still holding others like Vic Mignogna, Nobuhiro Watsuki, Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Bill Cosby, Roman Polanski, Logan Paul, Donald Trump, and Bobby fucking Kotick, just to name a few, would completely ignore someone like Evan Hansen for the vile shit that he did? Okay, this is not a case of you pissing on my leg and telling me that it's raining. This is a case of you telling me that the sky is green when it's clearly blue and then accusing me of gaslighting.
So, Evan gets away with it yet again and proves that indeed no consequences will ever come to you if you're privileged and if you're written by privileged grown-ups. Now, we gotta get serious for 1 second here. I made a big deal just now, over a minute ago, about how Evan is a character with little to no problems, and whom has nothing to complain about despite all the bullshit that he's whining about regarding his mother. This movie and this story bears his name on the marquee. Despite him being the most unlikable, most unrelatable, and the most controversial part about all of it. And you want to know the worst part about all of this? Much like the original, the movie completely ignores who the real star of the story is supposed to be. And I got news for you, it's not Evan Hansen.
Think that's funny?
What? No, not at all.
And stop laughing!
Guys, I'm not gonna lie. Of all the things that prevented me from talking about this movie for over a year, the mishandling of Connor Murphy was so horrible and so sickening to my stomach that after spending over a year working on my original video, only to jump back to another, was just too much for me to handle. The one fucking thing that this movie needed to do, what it needed to try and get right, was how it handled Connor Murphy. And they completely screwed it up all over again. There's a reason why I have this shirt on. It's not just because it's cute and because I got it from the Musicals with Cheese website, which you can totally check out right here. It's also because this little infamous quote by Jess and Andrew from Musicals with Cheese. Justice for Connor. At first I thought it was a cute little joke that they placed on my original Dear Evan Hansen video, but the more I think about it, I think this phrase is a lot more meaningful than either of them probably expected.
First, allow me to introduce you to someone. This handsome gentleman right here is Colton Ryan. He is an actor, singer, has appeared on television and on film, along with having a couple of theater credits under his belt. This is him singing West Side Story.
Maria, I just met a girl named Maria.
Whoa, he's dreamy.
He was also an understudy for the character of Connor Murphy during Dear Evan Hansen's run on Broadway, as well as Jared and Evan himself, coincidentally enough.
Johnny outside.
Alden Ryan is a very talented dude with an even more promising career and one who definitely deserved better than what he got on this film.
I say all of this for 2 reasons. 1, because I don't want him to see this video and kick my ass 3 ways to Christmas. Not that I'd be complaining.
Oh, shut up, you horny idiot!
And 2, I want to illustrate just how much of a mistake it was to underutilize Connor Murphy as badly as the movie did. Especially when you have incredible talent behind the character working with garbage handled by these people.
All I know is I won't go speechless, speechless.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Connor Murphy is a character ruined by the story he belongs to. He is a character who in any other story would be considered the protagonist, while someone like Evan, meanwhile, would be seen as the villain. He is the one who has suffered the most out of anyone in this story apart from his family, and so much of his personality, backstory, and character were either ignored, diluted, or completely hijacked in favor of keeping the spotlight on the one character who doesn't fucking deserve it. I already went on a long and winded rant about how poorly treated Connor was in the original show on my last Dear Evan Hansen video, but how could the movie possibly do him worse than the show did?
Simple. He's not even in the movie.
Odd behaviors, much like we might do in front of a mirror to see what we look like when we do that new dance step, or when we just want to see how we...
Okay, that's a little hyperbolic. Of course Connor is in the movie. What I mean is that by comparison to the original story, he is not in the movie in any meaningful way, even when he's still alive.
Now let me show you what I mean. I rewatched this movie multiple times and calculated every second that Connor appears on screen. Now, not counting when they sing Sincerely Me, as that isn't really him, but rather a fantasy that Evan and Jared came up with while writing fake emails about Connor and Evan, and I'm also not going to count the end of the film, more on that later. The amount of screen time that Connor shares on screen before kicking the bucket is less than 3 fucking minutes!
3 fucking minutes!
For shit's sake, the Connor from the stage version was alive longer than this one!
This movie has a $28 million budget and a runtime of 137 minutes, roughly 13 minutes less than the stage version, with half of its songs removed and very little changes outside of the 4 I talked about already. How is it that during the entirety of the making of this wretched movie that nobody, Chbosky, Levinson, Pasek, or Paul, or anybody involved, not take a single look at the story and think, hey, do you think maybe we should do something with the character whose death gets glorified and makes up the entirety of the impetus for the plot? No. Okay then? Well then, what are we gonna do? We'll give him a brand new song to sing after he already died, and have the footage of it be from him performing privately while in rehab, and have his privacy violated for the sake of making Evan Hansen feel better about himself. You're kidding, right? Hey, who won the Oscar again? Didn't your movie falsely win Best Picture?
We frequently Manuel Miranda! We are indestructible! I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds!
At least that's how I feel it went down.
I'm not kidding about that last part though. During the final few minutes of the movie post Words Fail, after Evan confesses the truth, we cut to a montage of Evan trying to discover who Connor actually is by getting in touch with everyone who knew him best, since he already screwed up with the ones that matter the most, and reading what his favorite books were.
And yes, the fact that he was an apparent fan of Ready Player One does heavily imply that he might have been a huge asshole if Zoe's resentful feelings towards him are anything to go by.
Ultimately, he receives footage of Connor playing guitar and singing the other Oscar bait added for the film song, A Little Closer, which to my understanding is entirely written by Pasek and Paul, which explains how unremarkable and boring it is, while Connor is singing in rehab. Okay, forget for a second how much of a possible HIPAA violation it is for anyone to not only record someone while in rehab without consent, or how unrealistic this whole rehab scenario is, and I had to check in with multiple sources who are HIPAA certified just to be able to make this analogy. This entire sequence of events highlights something dastardly that the original did so much yet no one either noticed or didn't care. It proves that Connor is not a character, but is instead a prop for the story to happen. What do I mean by this? Well, let's first go back to the stage show and how it treated Connor after he dies. Prior to Evan beginning to sell his lies to the Murphys, a personification of Connor appears in front of Evan, follow me on this, to serve as something of a conscience trying to help Evan justify his behavior. What the fuck? This Connor is completely disconnected from whatever form of reality that the actual Connor belonged to, and is instead a manifestation of Evan's imagination. A Gusteau to Evan's Remy from Ratatouille, if you will. Basically, it's a completely made up Connor that only exists to tell Evan what he wants to hear, and that he should or should not do certain things. Evan has such little understanding of who Connor really was that in his mind the only image that he can conjure of him is of one whom he believes can help raise awareness of, thinking that this is what he would have wanted Evan to do. What does the real Connor think about any of this? Or rather, what did the real Connor think about any of this?
I have no idea! None! None!
Connor Murphy was a non-entity in the original show. The only thing that we as an audience are given about him when he's alive was that he was a drug addict, an outcast, and a potty mouth.
Fuck you!
In case you're not following the pattern here, the show gives us practically nothing about him. No clue on his personality outside of school or away from his parents. We don't know anything about any friends that he might have had, any past relationships, hobbies, or anything at all. The very little that we are given about him gets cut out criminally short when he kills himself, and the rest of the story is a fake version of him where one of these idiots makes jokes about him rubbing his nipples and moaning with delight for the main character.
I rub my nipples and start moaning with delight.
You probably didn't know this, but in the novelization of the show, it's heavily implied that he was fucking fluid. So these gay jokes are not only insensitive and cheap since the person getting mocked is dead and can't defend himself, it's also completely tone deaf since, like I said on my last video, this shit was written by a composer duo of which one of them is openly fucking gay, and wrote this. And to add insult to injury, this stupid song was performed on stage during a time when certain horrible things were happening in America. Whoops.
Anyway, you get the picture. Connor is barely a character in his own story and doesn't have any agency whatsoever. And when Evan isn't lying about the relationship together, Connor's family is at a crossroads over what Connor meant to them and how they truly feel about his passing. Zoe being the most conflicted since her relationship with him was very toxic and violent, until Evan sings If I Could Tell Her, and she doesn't put two and two together that this is a creepy incesty stalker song about her brother wanting to bang her, and that its legitimacy might be slightly questionable. The only piece of information we get to learn about Connor after his death was that the park at the end of the show was his favorite place in the world to go to. And even that is relayed by other characters speaking for him. Throughout the rest of the show, every time Connor is mentioned, it's either in relevance to the Connor Project or in relevance to how other characters unrelated to him feel about certain things.
Never mind the fact that the show disgustingly tries to glorify Connor after his passing. The show cares so little about him that it doesn't even give him the dignity of having his own song where we get to know more about him from his own perspective. And why would it? We can't take away the focus from Evan Hansen. It is his name on the marquee after all.
This is where the movie could have truly done the greatest service of all, by giving Connor a voice that was desperately missing. What they did instead was give him even less screen time, even less agency, and they gave him a song that has no relation to him or say anything about him as a person, performed during a moment of confidentiality where his privacy was breached and now being distributed without consent to a stranger that, try as he might convince himself, did not know him at all. Even when it's about Connor, it's about Evan fucking Hansen. And I have had enough. Dear Evan Hansen is a feel-bad story written with a feel-good soundtrack that doesn't fit and has a narrative so disjointed in tone that it doesn't know if it wants to be a dark comedy that isn't funny or a serious tragedy that gets no sympathy from people too smart to fall for its tricks. Its attempts at comedy range from unfunny to outright offensive, it offers no decent morals and nothing of value outside of weak attempts at sympathy, its music is atrocious, and the story itself feels about as realistic and relatable as a Disney Channel original movie written by grown men who wanted to pat themselves on the back thinking that they did the right thing.
Dear Evan Hansen, the movie, had every opportunity to make as many changes as it wanted to help salvage the problematic elements of the show. Instead, it took all the problematic elements that the show had, added new problematic elements, and made a product that ends up being a horrible adaptation of an already horrible musical, as well as a horrible standalone movie getting rightfully shat upon by critics and audiences everywhere. Apart from the critical and commercial lashing it received, the film received more embarrassment by being nominated for 4 Golden Raspberry Awards, including Worst Actor for Ben Platt, Worst Supporting Actress for Amy Adams, completely undeserved, mind you, Worst Director for Steven Chbosky, and Worst Screen Couple, which consisted of Ben Platt and any other character who acts like Ben Platt singing 24/7 is normal. Sadly, it didn't win a single one of them because the Razzies care more about making fun of whatever is currently fun to make fun of, instead of talking about what are actually considered cinematic failures.
Let there be no mistake, Dear Evan Hansen is a failure. Maybe not a failure in terms of editing, acting, writing, and directing, although those definitely didn't help, but in terms of what it is and what it tried to accomplish, it is a failure in the grand scheme of things. It was supposed to introduce mainstream audiences to one of the most critically acclaimed musicals of all time, and not only did it get rejected, it was turned into a punchline with this unfortunate image serving as the biggest insult of all. It was supposed to jump Ben Platt into superstardom and possibly even an Oscar nomination, and instead he got a Razzie nomination while his ego and performance turned him into a laughingstock. And more important of all, it was supposed to be a movie that would reach a generation of children, teens, and young adults who could relate to the themes that the film presented to them, much like The Perks of Being a Wallflower did so many years ago. And instead, it was dismissed by many by being toxic and unrelatable, and criticized by many for how it depicted many of those themes that the film feels so proud of acknowledging.
Dear Evan Hansen caused so much of a stir for all of the wrong reasons. So is it really any surprise that the show would close its doors a year after the movie came out? I think not. It's so weird to see that I was wrong when I said that this movie was going to be very successful and defended by its fans, since even fans hated this movie as much as critics did. It is one of, if not the biggest failures in terms of live-action movie adaptations of famous musicals. And even if it isn't, it's still a bad story, no matter how hard you try to justify any of its faults. I'm sorry it took me over a year to talk about this, but this was easily the biggest video I've ever done, and I am, honestly, just so done. I'm so done and I'm so tired, Look, I think I need another minute.
Why the hell is this happening to me? I thought I was over this already. I don't understand what the hell. You're just a stupid circus movie. A stupid, harmless circus movie that's also a very, very historically inaccurate white savior fantasy with some of the worst music I have ever. I just said to Dear Evan Hansen twice. You're not worth it.
Wow, I did not think that after 4 months that this video would ever see the light of day. But somehow it did. And I'm very proud of all the hard work that was put into it, and I'm even more proud over the fact that I was able to share this with all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and once again, I am very sorry that it took so long. I'm just happy to know that after all the hard work, all the stress and the anxiety that I've suffered through during these past few months, all the pain, all the heartbreak, that it was all worth it at the end. I'm actually battling tears right now as I'm talking about this, but I cannot appreciate all of you enough for sticking by me throughout all of this. I'd like to give a special shout out to our patrons of honor, Wade in the Wings, Chelsea A. Crandall, Abigail Verzella, and Kate from KCast Reviews. If you want to be like them and support this channel and help us keep the lights going, then check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards. I don't know how exactly I'm going to be able to top this, but I guarantee from here on in, I'm going to be working twice as hard in order to give all of you the kind of content that you deserve. As always, I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews signing out. Please stay until the end as there is a post-credits scene for all of this, and I'll see you on the wasteland. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see, a million dreams that can... What the hell? Hello? Wait a minute, how the hell is there anybody knocking here? I live by myself!
Not so fast. You and I have got one more musical to talk about.
Oh, god damn it!